Something changed the moment your soulmate's friend discovered the full truth about you. Not half of it. Not the version your soulmate tells people when they are trying to look unaffected. This friend knows everything: the feelings, the fear, the private conversations, the moments of regret, and even the decision your soulmate has been struggling to make. And now, this friend is planning to help. But what makes this so surprising is how they plan to do it. Because your soulmate believes they have hidden their feelings perfectly. They think nobody realizes how deeply this connection has affected them. They think their silence has protected their secret. It hasn't. Their friend noticed. They noticed the way your soulmate changes whenever your name comes up. They noticed the sudden silence, the forced smile, the way your soulmate tries to redirect the conversation whenever someone gets too close to the truth. And recently, something happened that made this friend stop watching quietly. Your soulmate finally admitted something. It happened during a conversation that began casually. There was no dramatic plan to confess everything. Your soulmate was simply talking, pretending life was normal, when their friend asked one question. "Why are you still pretending you don't care?" Your soulmate froze. For a few seconds, they said nothing. Then they tried to laugh. They tried to dismiss it. But their friend already knew. And instead of letting the subject disappear, the friend pushed further. "You still think about them, don't you?" That was the moment the wall cracked. Your soulmate didn't immediately say yes. They didn't need to. Their face answered first. Their friend had seen that expression before, the expression of someone carrying words they desperately want to say but are terrified to release. Eventually your soulmate admitted the truth. They said they had tried to move forward. They had tried distracting themselves. They had tried convincing themselves that whatever existed between you could be forgotten. But every attempt failed. Because somehow, you kept returning to their thoughts. Sometimes through a memory. Sometimes through a song. Sometimes through something completely ordinary. A place. A phrase. A certain time of day. Even seeing someone who carried a tiny similarity to you could bring everything rushing back. And their friend finally understood something your soulmate had been refusing to admit. This wasn't a temporary attraction. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't simply missing someone. Your soulmate was emotionally attached to you far more deeply than they had allowed anyone to see. But that was only the first revelation. Because their friend asked another question. "If you feel this strongly, why haven't you done anything?" Your soulmate's answer changed everything. They said, "Because I don't know if I still have the right." That sentence revealed the real problem. It wasn't that your soulmate didn't care. It wasn't that they had forgotten you. It wasn't even that someone else had completely taken your place. They were afraid. Afraid that too much time had passed. Afraid you had emotionally closed the door. Afraid that if they approached you now, you might look at them differently. And perhaps most painfully, afraid that they created some of the distance themselves. Their friend knew there had been misunderstandings. They knew your soulmate had hesitated when they should have spoken. They knew there were moments when pride became louder than honesty. They knew your soulmate sometimes acted cold precisely because they were feeling too much. And now that friend is tired of watching two people remain separated because neither knows exactly what the other is thinking. That is why a plan is forming. Not a plan to manipulate you. Not a plan to force something that isn't meant to happen. A plan to create an opening. A chance. A moment where the truth can finally breathe. Because this friend believes something your soulmate is still struggling to believe. They believe the story between you may not be finished. And here is where things become even more interesting. This friend has apparently been paying attention to you too. Not obsessively. Not secretly following every detail of your life. But enough to notice that your energy around this situation may not be completely indifferent either. Maybe it was something you said. Maybe something you posted. Maybe the way you reacted when a certain subject appeared. Maybe it was simply the fact that you never behaved like someone who felt absolutely nothing. Whatever it was, the friend noticed. And they started connecting pieces. Your soulmate has one version of events. You have another. Between those two versions sits a mountain of assumptions. The friend sees it. And that is exactly what they want to break. Because according to what your soulmate confessed, there is one particular misunderstanding that has been controlling everything. Your soulmate believes you stopped caring. Think about that. While you may have been protecting yourself, they interpreted your distance as rejection. While you may have been waiting for clarity, they interpreted your silence as closure. While you may have wondered why they weren't coming forward, they were wondering whether coming forward would only embarrass them. Two people. Two fears. One enormous silence. And one friend standing in the middle thinking, "This is ridiculous." That friend has apparently told your soulmate exactly that. They challenged them. They said something like, "You're making decisions based on something you haven't even confirmed." Your soulmate resisted. They started listing reasons. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe you don't want to hear from them. Maybe contacting you would reopen something painful. Maybe the timing is wrong. Their friend listened. Then came the question your soulmate couldn't answer. But what if you're wrong? Silence again. Because your soulmate has thought about that possibility. Many times. What if you haven't completely closed the door? What if you were waiting for honesty? What if one genuine conversation could change the entire situation? What if the ending they've been grieving isn't actually the ending? That possibility terrifies your soulmate almost as much as rejection does. Because if there is still a chance, then they have to make a choice. They can no longer hide behind uncertainty. They would have to become vulnerable. They would have to admit what happened inside them when everything changed between you. And there is something else they may eventually have to confess. Something their friend already knows. Your soulmate has compared other people to you. Maybe they never said it publicly. Maybe they would deny it if confronted casually. But privately, comparisons happened. Someone could be attractive, but something felt missing. Someone could be kind, but the emotional connection wasn't the same. Someone could give them attention, yet somehow their mind returned to the person who wasn't there. You. And their friend saw the pattern. At first, they thought your soulmate simply needed time. Then weeks passed. maybe months. And still, whenever the subject of meaningful relationships appeared, your soulmate somehow circled back to the same emotional place. That is when the friend realized your soulmate wasn't trying to forget a random person. They were trying to forget someone who had changed their emotional standards. That is much harder. Because once somebody makes you feel deeply understood, ordinary attention can begin to feel empty. Once someone reaches a part of you that you normally hide, replacing that connection isn't as simple as meeting somebody new. Your soulmate discovered that. And their friend knows it. But there is a twist. The friend wasn't always completely supportive of this connection. At some point, they may have questioned it. Maybe they thought your soulmate should move on. Maybe they believed the situation had become too complicated. Maybe they only heard one side of the story and assumed distance was best. But something changed their mind. They saw what happened to your soulmate after you became distant. Not necessarily dramatic heartbreak every day. Something quieter. Your soulmate became more guarded. More thoughtful. Less excited about certain things. They could still laugh. Still work. Still talk. Still live normally. But their friend noticed that certain spark had changed. And eventually they understood. Your soulmate didn't need somebody to tell them to forget you. They needed somebody to force them to face what they actually felt. So the friend changed strategies. Instead of saying, "Move on," they started asking, "What do you actually want?" At first your soulmate gave safe answers. "I don't know. It doesn't matter anymore. It's complicated." But the friend kept asking. And eventually your soulmate said something far more revealing. "If I knew they still cared, I would do things differently." There it is. That is the sentence around which this entire plan is being built. Your soulmate is waiting for certainty. Their friend believes certainty may never arrive unless somebody creates the opportunity for communication. So this friend is considering becoming the bridge. Maybe through a conversation. Maybe through a subtle mention. Maybe through circumstances that place both of you in the same emotional space again. Maybe they simply encourage your soulmate to send the message they have written and deleted more than once. Yes. There may already have been a message. Words typed. Read again. Changed. Then erased. Your soulmate may have stared at your name longer than you realize. They may have opened your conversation and closed it without sending anything. They may have rehearsed what they would say if you suddenly contacted them. Their friend knows about at least some of this hesitation. And they are getting impatient. Not because they want drama. Because they know hesitation has already cost too much time. They've told your soulmate that waiting forever is also a decision. Doing nothing has consequences. Silence communicates something, even when it communicates the wrong thing. And every day your soulmate waits, you could be moving further into a life where they are no longer included. That thought hit them hard. Because there is something your soulmate fears more than rejection. Regret. The possibility of seeing you happy someday and realizing they never even tried. The possibility of hearing that someone else gave you the honesty they were too afraid to offer. The possibility of watching another person receive the version of you they once had access to. That is what keeps coming back. And their friend knows it. That is why the friend said something that your soulmate has probably replayed repeatedly. If you lose them because they chose someone else, that's life. But if you lose them because you were too scared to speak, you'll blame yourself. Those words landed. Your soulmate couldn't easily dismiss them. Because deep inside, they knew the friend was right. And now another piece of the plan has appeared. Before helping your soulmate approach you, the friend wants them to become completely honest about what they would actually offer. Not just, "I miss you." Not just, "I still think about you." Because missing somebody isn't enough. Love without action can still leave someone lonely. Feelings without consistency can still create confusion. So the friend has challenged your soulmate. If you return, return differently. If you speak, speak clearly. If you apologize, don't hide excuses inside the apology. If you say you want another chance, explain what another chance would actually look like. That is important. Because this friend knows you shouldn't be pulled back into the same cycle. They aren't merely helping your soulmate get your attention. They're pushing your soulmate to become ready for the conversation. And your soulmate has begun thinking seriously about what they would say. They would tell you that some of their behavior wasn't a reflection of how little they cared. It was the opposite. They cared enough to become afraid. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of being vulnerable. Afraid of needing someone who could potentially hurt them. So they created distance. And then the distance became its own monster. The longer it lasted, the harder it became to break. They assumed you understood. You assumed they had chosen silence. Neither side truly knew. Now imagine your soulmate realizing that one honest conversation months ago might have prevented everything. That realization hurts. But it is also motivating them. Because they don't want another month to disappear. Their friend keeps reminding them that the perfect moment doesn't exist. There will always be a reason to wait. One more week. One more sign. One more coincidence. One more moment of certainty. But relationships aren't built on perfect certainty. Sometimes someone has to risk being honest first. And the friend thinks that person should be your soulmate. Why? Because according to what they know, your soulmate was the one who left too much unsaid. So they should be the one willing to break the silence. But the biggest revelation hasn't arrived yet. Because apparently your soulmate's friend knows something about you that your soulmate doesn't. Something small, but powerful. The friend has reason to believe that hearing from your soulmate would affect you more deeply than your soulmate expects. Maybe they witnessed your reaction to their name. Maybe somebody said something. Maybe a mutual connection revealed that the situation wasn't as one-sided as your soulmate assumed. Whatever happened, the friend became more confident. Not certain. But confident enough to say, "You need to talk to them." Your soulmate asked why. The friend didn't reveal everything. Instead, they said, "Trust me." That made your soulmate suspicious. What do you know? The friend avoided answering directly. And now your soulmate can't stop wondering. Does this friend know you still care? Did you say something? Did someone tell them something? Have they noticed something your soulmate missed? That mystery is pushing your soulmate closer toward action. And strangely, the friend may be keeping that detail hidden intentionally. Because they don't want your soulmate approaching you with arrogance. They don't want them thinking your heart is guaranteed. They want your soulmate to come honestly. Without assuming your answer. Without expecting instant forgiveness. Without believing love automatically erases the past. They want them vulnerable. That is the only version of this reunion worth creating. And something is changing inside your soulmate. For the first time, instead of asking, "What if they reject me?" they are beginning to ask, "What if this actually works?" That question has opened a door. They have started imagining the conversation. Your face. Your voice. That first awkward moment. The things they would finally admit. They imagine telling you that you mattered more than they showed. That losing regular contact with you affected them. That they kept expecting the feelings to fade. They didn't. They imagine admitting that they checked for signs of you. That sometimes they wondered whether you were thinking about them at the exact same moment. That certain memories still feel strangely recent. But there is one confession they are most afraid to make. They have imagined a future with you. Not necessarily every detail. But enough. Enough to picture what would happen if both of you stopped running from the connection. Enough to wonder what ordinary life together might feel like. Not dramatic romance every second. Morning conversations. Inside jokes. Arguments that actually get resolved. Celebrating good news. Supporting each other when life becomes difficult. Your soulmate has thought beyond attraction. And that is why the situation became frightening. Because casual feelings are easy to risk. Deep feelings are different. The more someone matters, the more terrifying losing them becomes. Your soulmate tried to avoid that risk by staying emotionally protected. But protection became separation. Now their friend is trying to reverse it. And this plan may unfold sooner than expected. There could be a message. An invitation. A seemingly casual interaction that isn't casual at all. You may notice your soulmate appearing differently. Less guarded. More curious. More willing to keep the conversation going. If that happens, remember something. Their friend may have given them courage. But the words will still have to come from your soulmate. Nobody else can repair the connection for them. Nobody else can apologize for them. Nobody else can prove their intentions. The friend can open a door. Your soulmate must walk through it. And you still decide whether that door remains open. That is the part your soulmate is finally beginning to respect. They understand that your feelings cannot be demanded. If you were hurt, you have every right to need clarity. If you lost trust, rebuilding it takes more than one emotional conversation. Their friend has told them this too. Don't go back expecting everything to instantly become what it was. Because maybe it shouldn't become what it was. Maybe if this connection returns, it needs to become something better. More honest. More mature. Less dependent on guessing games. Less silence. Less pride. More communication. That possibility is exactly why the friend is helping. They don't want to resurrect an old problem. They want to give two people the opportunity to create a different outcome. And your soulmate has apparently made one private decision already. If they get another genuine opportunity with you, they don't want to repeat the same mistake. They want to say what they feel while they still have the chance. They want to stop assuming you can read their mind. They want to stop hiding affection behind distance. Most importantly, they want to know the truth. Even if the truth isn't what they hope. Because uncertainty has become more painful than an answer. And there is another reason urgency is growing. Your soulmate senses that you are changing. Maybe becoming stronger. More independent. More selective. Maybe you no longer chase explanations the way you once did. Maybe your energy says, if somebody wants to be in my life, they need to show me. Your soulmate feels that shift. And their friend definitely sees it. That is why they warned your soulmate. You're running out of time to keep assuming they'll always be there. Not because some magical deadline exists. Because people evolve. Hearts heal. Priorities change. Someone who would have waited yesterday may choose peace tomorrow. Your soulmate understands that now. And it scares them. But sometimes fear creates clarity. They finally see what matters. They don't want another year of wondering. They don't want to keep hearing your name and pretending it means nothing. They don't want to keep meeting people while secretly comparing the connection. They want an answer. More importantly, they want to finally give you the truth you should have received earlier. Their friend knows everything. The feelings. The regrets. The unsent words. The fear. The hope. And now they are planning to help. But here is the beautiful irony. The friend's greatest contribution may not be arranging a meeting or sending a message.